Next on my super long laundry list of things to do is to drain all of the coolant out so I can fix the leaks. The previous owner decided to use these little cheap plumbing plastic barb fittings and a lot of cut up hose. I'm going to ditch all of that and start from scratch. I've got some silicone heater hose. I'm going to put a rear heater under the back seat. I'm going to be running hoses for those as well as T-fittings. Today it is up to 51 degrees, sunny, so today's kind of the day to do it, so get right back to it. Well, that didn't exactly go according to plan, but I'm glad I did it. I'm just going to replace all of the cooling hoses. I've removed them all from the engine bay. I even replaced the fuel filter. Every one of these hose ends was over clamped to make it smaller with the wrong type of clamps, so they didn't exactly seal. And these coolant transfer pipes that run the length of the van are the smaller 1.25 inches rather than the later model 1.5 inches. Which is part of the reason why this hose was leaking and this hose was leaking right here. So it's all going to be replaced. Pretty sure I'm just going to go with rubber again, unless I can find silicone cheaper than $700. I did find one shop that makes them for $400 including shipping, so I'm going to contact them and see how quickly I can get them sent in the mail. So right now I'm going to put on a clutched alternator pulley. But first I have to remove the old one. So there's the one that's on my alternator currently. As you can see, it's not a clutch pulley, it's just a regular one. But because the way my belt setup is, I don't actually have a tensioner. The alternator acts as the tensioner. So having a clutch pulley is definitely going to increase the belt life. Now in some cases when you can't break it loose just with a regular ratchet or a wrench, using an impact gun is fine, but you only do short bursts because you don't want to damage the alternator. Now I'm going to loosen the tension and pull the belt off with the pulley. Now as you can see, there's a clear difference. The size is about the same, but the clutch pulley has an internal mechanism that allows it to free spin during RPM changes, such as startup, stopping, or when you're changing gears. The major difference between these two, a standard pulley can just go right on and then you tighten it. Very simple. A clutched pulley won't go on all the way. It'll stop about part way, so you need a specialty tool. And here's the kit. Now I'm only going to need to use one of these, the one that's meant for VW. It was relatively inexpensive. It was less than $35, including shipping. Now that I have my ratchet on, I need to get a wrench to hold this in place. Now while I hold it, I also need to be pushing towards the alternator while I spin the shaft. Then when you're done installing, you got this nifty dust cap to go on it. Now to reinstall the belt. Next on my list of things to do is to put my air cleaner in the correct way. Previously it was mounted like this so you couldn't service the air filter. So I'm going to mount it this way so I can more easily access the air filter if I need to. First I have to remove this and reposition it so that it's right up against the rear frame horn. And there it is. I cut a section off that wasn't necessary and I rounded the edges to match the other side. So I have two choices now. I can either bolt it in or I could weld it in. For what I'm dealing with, because the previous owner has already welded here, I'm going to go ahead and put a small bead right here. Now I'm going to paint it, mount the airbox, and start measuring up for new air intake pipes. And there it is for now. I'm going to be doing a lot of sound deadening and heat insulation in the engine bay, which will cover up all the different colors. Like this, it's reflective, it's foam. It should do a good job of cutting down engine noise in the cabin. Next up is replacing my crankcase breather tube. Relatively simple job. This starts right down there, goes all the way up to the CCV valve. So to get this job done, you're going to need a 6mm Allen head. Looks like this. It's got 6 sides to it. And there it is, the old original compared to the new one. They're exactly the same size. Although on the base of the original one, you can see where it's warped compared to the new one. Another task is cleaning up the wiring. As you can see here, I've repositioned the glow plug solenoid. I've redone the wiring, cleaned it up, put some loom over it, did the same for all the wires that go to it. Next up will be the coolant and the air intake and the exhaust. Once I clean up the rest of the wires, I also have to replace this oil hose that goes to the oil sensor splitter. Little bit by little bit, it's getting closer to being ready for the road. Wow, I got more parts. First, we've got an engine block heater. Not a huge deal, but it only cost me $15 with shipping. I've got another set of the rubber floor mats that I love so much. I've got a set of these in my tin top Vanagon. Next is the diesel oil dipstick. I did order a new tube, which should be arriving in the next couple days. But what I'm so super excited about is perhaps the last set of coolant hoses I'll ever have to buy for this van. It's of course the first set of coolant hoses I've ever had to buy for it. I went with the silicone hoses. I know they're a big, huge chunk of money, but unlike the $600 or $700 ones sold in the States, which are fantastic by the way, these were almost half the price and they come from the UK. So without further ado, I'm gonna start putting the new shiny parts on. All right, let's get these on.